Welcome to another deep dive. We're tackling something today that's, well, pretty universal, dealing with pressure.
hmm
And our source for this is actually a really interesting one. It's an English learning episode, specifically focused on how to stay calm under pressure.
Yes, and while it's, framed for language learners, what's really valuable is that this source text offers a surprisingly practical framework
Right.
and concrete strategies for managing stress,
hmm
for staying calm. It goes way beyond just vocabulary or grammar drills.
Absolutely. Think of it as like a language lesson that's also a crash course in practical psychology, emotional regulation almost.
Exactly.
So our mission here in this deep dive is to pull out the most useful insights, the actionable nuggets from the source about managing pressure.
Making it clear and applicable for you, the listener.
Yeah. And the source touches on all sorts of pressure, doesn't it?
It does. It looks at those big moments, exams, job interviews, presentations.
High stakes stuff.
Right. But also the everyday stresses, like maybe challenging conversations, or even just the simple pressure of running late for an appointment.
We've all been there.
Oh, absolutely.
And a core message the source keeps coming back to, and this is really key, is this idea that staying calm isn't some, innate trait you either have or you don't.
That's a crucial point it makes. It's presented as a skill,
Like learning a language itself.
precisely, like learning English, or any skill. It can be trained, it can be improved with consistent practice.
Okay, so let's unpack this source then. Let's see how it suggests we build that skill.
Sounds good. Where do we start?
Well, the source starts by grounding us in language, which honestly makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does.
If you can't name something, a feeling, a technique, it's much harder to talk about it or, use it effectively.
Right, it gives us the words, the vocabulary to actually discuss what's happening internally.
So the first key term it tackles is stress, with a capital S almost.
Yes. And the source defines this as that feeling of pressure or tension, especially when you're in difficult situations. It's a strain on your mind or body.
It's that kind of overarching feeling, isn't it? The examples they give really capture it. I feel a lot of stress before my speaking exam. That's a classic one.
Or work has been incredibly busy lately, and I'm feeling a lot of stress from all the tight deadlines, that general background pressure.
Yeah, and the source also points out something important, that stress can actively interfere with your ability to focus.
Which is critical. It's not just an unpleasant feeling, it actually hinders performance.
Exactly. Then it distinguishes stress from nerves. How does it define nerves?
Nerves is presented as more immediate, often a physical reaction, that
Mhm.
feeling of being anxious, worried, maybe physically shaky because something important is happening.
Okay. So stress is the general pressure. Nerves are the more acute reaction.
Sort of. And it's often used in the plural. Nerves. You have the
Ah.
nerves.
Right. You know that feeling butterflies in the stomach, maybe shaky hands.
Exactly. The source's examples are vivid. He had a bad case of the nerves before his job interview. His hands were actually shaking.
Oh, yeah.
Or, my nerves were really acting up before I had to give my presentation.
It clarifies the difference between the adjective nervous and the noun nerves, too, right?
It does. It says, you feel nervous or you have the nerves. And gives an example for nervous. I sometimes get nervous before a big meeting.
Got it. So we have stress, nerves. What's next?
Well, interestingly, the source moves straight from naming the feelings to naming a key tool for managing them, breathing techniques.
Practical tools.
Yes, exactly. It describes these as specific exercises, controlled methods focusing on your breath specifically to calm down, reduce anxiety, improve focus.
So it's giving a name to the solution right alongside the problem.
Precisely. The examples are things like, I always use breathing techniques to relax before a big test.
Makes sense.
Or, when I feel overwhelmed, a simple breathing technique helps me regain control.
And did the source mention any specific techniques?
It did mention one used by its hosts. I think it was the 4-7-8 method. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 7, exhale for 8.
Okay, a concrete example.
Yeah, and the general example sentence was something like, deep breathing techniques help me feel more in control.
And to help learners practice these words, the source used fill in the blanks, didn't it?
It did, yeah. Little exercises like, before I speak in public, I often feel a lot of fin in my stomach.
Which would be nerves.
Nerves, exactly. Or, taking slow, deep breaths is a simple but powerful that anyone can learn.
Breathing technique.
Got it. And the last one, I'm trying to reduce the amount of feeling it in my life.
Stress. That makes sense.
So the source really emphasizes that first step, Just having the language, being
Mhm.
able to identify what you're feeling and the tools you have, that itself gives you a bit of agency.
Absolutely. Just naming it can sometimes take away some of its power. Okay, so building on that vocabulary, the source then connects it to a grammar point, which seems maybe a surprising direction.
It does at first glance, but it's actually quite clever. It introduces conditionals, specifically the first conditional.
Okay, the if-then statements. Why those?
Well, think about it. Conditionals are all about if this happens, then that will happen. Or if this is the situation, then this is the usual result.
Right, cause and effect or situation and response.
Exactly. And the first conditional structure, if plus present simple, then plus present simple for habits, or if plus present simple, then plus will plus verb for planned future actions, is perfect for talking about how you plan to react to stress.
Ah, I see. So it's teaching you to structure your coping strategies as mental rules. If I feel X, then I will do Y.
Precisely. It's about pre-programming your response. The examples the source gives make this really clear. If I get nervous, I usually take deep breaths.
Condition. Getting nervous. Usual result. Taking deep breaths. Simple.
Another one. If I feel stressed, I listen to calming music. Condition. Feeling stressed. Planned action. Listen to music.
Makes total sense. The source also mentioned using when instead of if sometimes.
Yeah. For things that happen regularly, like when I feel overwhelmed, I stepped away from my desk. It implies it's a more routine occurrence in response.
Okay. And again, it turns this into practice.
Yes, by having you complete sentences, like, if I feel nervous, I dread, and you have to fill in your planned action.
Forces you to think it through.
Exactly. Or, if I forget a word during my speaking test, what's your recovery plan? You define it before it happens.
Smart. If I start to panic, again, prompting you to pre-program your response.
If I have a lot of work pressure, identifying your go-to strategies.
Yeah.
And the source suggests that practicing these sentences isn't just grammar homework.
Right. It's more than that.
It's actually creating mental scripts. You're building these pre-programmed plans for stressful situations. You're essentially building mental resilience by deciding your reaction in advance.
You're kind of wiring your brain to follow a specific, calmer path when the pressure actually hits.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
The source even has you form full sentences for common scenarios, like, say you're stuck in traffic, you're going to be late.
Okay.
The suggested response structure is something like, if I'm stuck in traffic, I'll call ahead, or text, or whatever your plan is.
So you define the action, or that awful moment in a presentation when your mind just goes blank.
Yeah, what's your if-then plan for that specific scenario? The source pushes you to think about it.
Or receiving unexpected bad news. How do you frame your intended response using that conditional structure?
And facing a complex decision that feels overwhelming. Again, the source suggests structuring your approach.
Yeah.
If the decision feels overwhelming, I will break it down, or I will talk to someone, or whatever your strategy is.
So this active language practice, as the source shows, helps make your desired calm response feel more automatic when you actually need it. It's not just abstract knowledge.
Exactly. It connects the language directly to the action.
Okay, so we've got the words, we've got the if-then structure for planning, then the source moves into real-world examples, right, to make it more concrete.
Right. It gets very practical here. It dives into specific, common scenarios to show these strategies in action. Brings it all to life.
What's the first one?
The first scenario is a speaking exam. Specifically, that moment we've all probably dreaded or experienced. You forget a word. You freeze up.
Ugh. Yeah, mind goes blank. Feeling stuck.
Exactly. And the source offers immediate, simple strategies. First, take a small, quick, almost invisible breath. Just a tiny pause.
Okay. Doesn't draw attention, but gives you a second.
Right. Then paraphrase. Try to explain your idea using different, maybe simpler words.
Get the meaning across another way.
Yeah. Or use simple phrases to buy yourself a bit more thinking time. Things like, let me think about that, or let me explain that another way, or even just, how can I put this?
Useful little phrases.
Incredibly practical.
Yeah.
And the source emphasizes, look, this happens, it's common, it's okay. The main goal is just to keep the communication flowing. Don't let the freeze stop you completely.
And this connects back to the conditional planning, right?
Perfectly. As the source suggests, you can have that plan ready. If I forget a word during my speaking test, I will try to paraphrase it.
Yeah.
You've already decided on your action.
Okay, scenario 1. Speaking exam freeze. What's next?
Situation 2 is the classic job interview, where nerves can feel really intense, heart-pounding, sweaty palms. Maybe your voice starts shaking.
Oh, yeah. The full nerve package.
Exactly. And here the source offers a kind of multi-pronged approach. First, some mental strategies.
Like what?
Positive self-talk, reminding yourself, I've prepared for this, I can do it. Thinking about your actual strengths and qualifications. Visualization, picturing success.
So working on the internal monologue first.
Yes. And then pairing that with simple physical actions, like take another quick, silent, deep breath, have a sip of water, keeping a bottle nearby is a really simple but effective preparation step.
Good tip.
Another smart one. Politely ask the interviewer to repeat the question. It's perfectly acceptable, and it buys you a crucial moment to just recenter yourself.
That's clever. It gives you a beat.
And the source normalizes this feeling, too. It points out that feeling nervous is human. It actually shows you care about the opportunity. The focus then shifts to managing the outward presentation, trying to maintain eye contact, speak clearly while using these internal techniques to manage the feeling.
And the conditional plan for this.
Could be something like, if I feel my heart racing in the interview, I will take a deep breath and tell myself, I've got this, reinforcing that planned response.
Okay, makes sense. What's the third scenario?
The third one is super relatable. Running late for something important and feeling that awful rush turn into actual panic.
Been there. Traffic jam, unexpected train delay. Suddenly your mind is racing with negative thoughts.
Yeah, spiraling. And this is where the source highlights the power of a conscious interruption. It suggests literally stopping mentally for just 10 seconds. Pause. Take one deep, intentional breath.
Just forcing a pause in the panic.
Exactly. And accompanying that pause with a conscious thought or reframe. Okay, I can't change the past. I'm running late, but I can change my reaction right now.
Shifting from reactive panic to proactive management.
That's it. Then rationally assess. Can you make a quick call? Send a text to let them know. The source stresses making a conscious decision to focus on getting there safely and as calmly as possible now.
Instead of letting the stress drive.
Right. Actively telling yourself, this stress, this panic, it isn't actually helping me get there faster or safer. Panicking, as the source points out, doesn't fix the lateness. It just makes the journey itself worse and probably less efficient.
So if we connect this back to the bigger picture the source is building, you have the vocabulary, pressure, nerves.
You have the grammar structure to plan your response. If I'm late, I will message.
And you have these specific strategies like pause, breathe, reassess, reframe your thoughts.
Exactly. It builds into a complete toolkit.
Yeah.
And the source really emphasizes that these small conscious choices, the breath, the thought switch, they make a huge difference in managing your internal state. They help you feel more in control, even when things outside your control go wrong.
Okay, so it lays out the problem, the language, the planning structure, the specific actions. Does it talk about how to kind of integrate all this?
It does. The source doesn't just leave you with the concepts. It concludes with a section specifically designed to integrate the learning, the vocabulary, the grammar, the strategies through active practice and review.
How does it do that?
It moves into a sort of guided practice phase. It suggests finding a quiet place, getting into a comfortable posture, and just focusing on your breath, coming back to that really fundamental tool.
Grounding yourself again.
Yes. And it brings back that 4-7-8 breathing method as one concrete technique you could use during this practice time.
Okay.
And then it introduces positive affirmations, short phrases to repeat silently while you're doing the breathing.
Like what kind of affirmations?
Simple, powerful ones. I am calm. I am ready. I am capable.
Ah, okay. So not just wishing, but stating them as intentions.
Exactly. They're presented as ways to consciously signal to your mind and body the state you want to achieve, actively counteracting that stress response.
And this is where the source really ties everything together then. Vocabulary, grammar, strategy, practice.
Yes, precisely. It uses specific review sentences, maybe repeated a few times, to consolidate the learning and explicitly link the concepts, the words, and the structures.
Can you give some examples of those review sentences?
Sure, they're quite powerful distillations. One is, stress doesn't control me. I control my response to stress. That reframe is central.
That's a good one. Puts you back in the driver's seat.
Another connects the feeling, plan, and tool. If I feel my nerves kicking in, I will use a breathing technique to recenter myself.
Nerves, the if-then plan, the breathing technique, all there.
Then there's one that normalizes the feeling but affirms capability. Nerves are normal, and I can handle them. I have strategies to stay calm.
Reduces the stigma around feeling nervous.
Right. And a very simple, actionable one. If I feel pressure, I can take a moment to pause and breathe. Captures that core strategy. And one tailored for the language learning context, but honestly, it applies more broadly. I can speak English clearly even if I feel a little nervous. It acknowledges the feeling, but affirms your ability despite it.
So the source uses this review section not just for intellectual learning, but to help you kind of embed these ideas physically and emotionally too.
I think that's the goal, yes.
Yeah.
It shows how language practice, in this case, learning and repeating these sentences, can directly support building these important psychological skills, connecting the two.
Okay, that's a really interesting approach. So to quickly recap our journey through the source material,
Yeah, let's pull it together.
we started by exploring the essential vocabulary: stress, nerves, breathing techniques, just naming things.
Then we saw how conditional structures, the if-then sentences, provide a framework for pre-planning our responses to that stress.
We looked at those real-life scenarios, the exam freeze, the interview nerves, being late, and the concrete strategies the source offered for each.
And finally, we saw how the source integrates all this through guided practice, focusing on breath, using affirmations, and reviewing those key sentences that tie it all together.
Right. And the source doesn't just leave it there, does it? It actually gives homework.
It does. It suggests specific homework assignments. Based on this deep dive, concrete actions you, the listener, can take right now to keep practicing and really solidify these skills.
Okay, what are they?
First, it suggests you write about a time you felt nervous or stressed. Describe the situation, how you felt, and what you did, or maybe what you wish you'd done now that you have these ideas to stay calm.
Reflecting on past experience through this new lens.
Exactly. Second, it encourages you to actively use the language we discussed in that writing. Make sure to include at least 3 of the keywords stress, nerves, breathing techniques, and frame at least 2 of your reflections or planned responses as conditional if-then sentences.
So practicing the vocabulary and the grammar structure in a meaningful context.
Right. And third, a really simple practical task. Practice a breathing technique like the 4-7-8, or just simple, slow, deep breaths for just 1 or 2 minutes every day this week.
Just building a small habit.
Yeah. Maybe before a class or a meeting, a potentially tricky conversation, or even just before you go to bed. Just making it regular.
The source also mentions supplementary resources, like a quiz or worksheet.
It did, yeah. It indicated that things like a quiz and a PDF worksheet were available via a link in its description for anyone wanting to review further, which underlines the idea that this is a skill you build through ongoing effort, not just a one-time lesson.
Which brings us back nicely to the source's main conclusion, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The core message is staying calm under pressure is a skill. It's like learning anything new, playing an instrument, learning a language. It genuinely gets better with consistent practice.
So don't expect perfection overnight.
No, definitely not. But those small, regular efforts, trying a breathing technique, pre-planning an if-then response, reflecting on how you handled stress, they will absolutely lead to significant progress over time.
Okay. So maybe a final thought for you, our listeners, to carry forward from this deep dive, building on that idea of practiced calm.
Yeah.
Consider choosing just one really low-stakes situation this week. Maybe it's getting an email that slightly annoys you, or hitting unexpected traffic on a short trip, or even just feeling a bit rushed getting ready in the morning, something minor.
Okay, a small moment.
And in that moment, deliberately practice just one strategy we talked about. Maybe it's that 10-second mental pause and a conscious breath. Maybe it's actively reframing a negative thought, just one small thing.
And the question is,
The question to ponder is, how might that tiny act of practice control in that very minor moment ripple outwards? Could it subtly impact your ability to handle pressure in seemingly unrelated, much bigger situations down the line? What small situation could you choose today to consciously practice control over your response?